Hello and welcome to the Best of the 10. Another look at the stories which have stood out over the past 7 days. In this week's edition, police say they foiled what they believe could have been the world's biggest terrorist plot. Liquid explosives might have been used. We examine their potential for damage.
3, 2, 1.
In the Middle East, our security correspondent Frank Gardner meets the Israeli pilots on the front line of the conflict. And making the most of the micro, it's the 25th birthday of the first PC. This last week has seen the news dominated by a story other than the conflict in the Middle East. On Thursday, police claimed they'd foiled what they'd called a terrorist plot to commit mass murder on an unimaginable scale. It's believed the plan was to smuggle explosives in hand luggage on board planes, as our Home Affairs correspondent Daniel Sanford explained.
Extreme security and overwhelming chaos ruled at Britain's airports today, as the authorities wrestled with what one official described as a plot bigger than 9/11. Intelligence suggested that terrorists wanted to destroy as many as 10 aircraft heading for America.
There's no communication among you lot.
Airports remained open because police believed they had the suspects under control, but passengers' hand baggage was limited to transparent plastic bags with only a few essential items. Police say the plot was designed to kill huge numbers of passengers. The intelligence suggested a series of attacks were planned against transatlantic flights. 3 or even 4 planes would be targeted in 3 waves several days apart. The terrorists apparently planned to take the bomb components on board in their hand baggage. There would be detonators disguised as electronic devices, possibly disposable cameras, and liquid explosives hidden in fizzy drink bottles. In total, up to 10 planes were allegedly being targeted.
We are generally looking to the public to remain calm, patient and vigilant. But we cannot stress too highly the severity that this plot represented. Put simply, this was intended to be mass murder on an unimaginable scale.
Then briefly the mask slipped, the strain of the last 24 hours starting to show.
The police, acting with the security service, MI5, have carried out a major counter-terrorism operation overnight to disrupt an alleged plot to bring down a number of aircraft through mid-flight explosions. Had this plot been carried out, the loss of life to innocent civilians would have been on an unprecedented scale.
The operation was triggered early because detectives suddenly feared the attacks could be imminent, perhaps as soon as the weekend. Police rushed forward their plans to pull in the suspects. Raids began just before midnight. In all, there were 24 arrests. At 2 a.m, MI5 raised the terror threat to critical, the highest level. An hour and a half later, the government ordered airport security to be increased. At 5:30, Scotland Yard confirmed publicly they had launched a major counter-terrorist operation. John Prescott is the most senior minister in the UK, but the Prime Minister's been intricately involved in this week's fast-moving events from his holiday in Barbados, speaking several times to the American President George Bush. And it was John Reid who chaired all 3 of the emergency COBRA meetings that were held in the last 24 hours.
If the intelligence is correct, the scale of the plot is simply staggering. Not just one bomb, but a series of repeated multiple attacks. Without doubt, the most devastating terrorist assault ever launched in the UK.
This British summer, like the last, has now been clouded by terrorism. No bombs this time, but disruption, inconvenience and nervousness. As airports stayed open late to clear the backlog, police were working on turning intelligence into evidence. They have up to 28 days to charge their suspects. Daniel Sanford, BBC News at Heathrow Airport.
As we heard, police said the plotters intended to use liquid explosives to target transatlantic flights. Our correspondent Gordon Carrera witnessed just how dangerous even small quantities can be.
They may look benign, but now even drinks have joined the list of substances banned from being taken on board planes. The fear is that in the hands of a trained terrorist, what look like everyday items could be lethal.
The terrorists plan to carry the components of the bombs, including liquid explosive ingredients and detonating devices, disguised as beverages, electronic devices, or other common objects.
The use of liquid explosives is a dangerous innovation by terrorist groups. They're difficult to detect. They don't look like a bomb on an X-ray machine. They can't necessarily be sniffed like other explosives. They could even be kept in a bottle like this. A false bottom could be filled with liquid explosive, but someone could still drink from it. And the chemicals involved are relatively easy to obtain without arousing suspicion. Some, such as methyl nitrate, need only be mixed on board a plane to become dangerous.
Here, for example, is some nitromethane.
Dr. Sidney Alford is an expert in explosives. He showed us just how easy it was to make a liquid explosive small enough to fit in a film container, although he doesn't give away the full recipe. He also showed us the damage it could do, blowing a hole through a steel plate.
3, 2, 1. Here we are. If I were in an airplane, the thought that that material that I was perfectly relaxed handling, demonstrating to you a couple of minutes ago, could be in the seat next to me, that would chill my blood.
Security sources told the BBC that the explosive intended for this plot would have been sophisticated and highly effective. Working out how to deal with this threat in the future is going to be a major challenge. Gordon Carrera, BBC News.
Events in the Middle East have changed dramatically over the course of the week. Monday saw an agreement between the warring party to accept a United Nations resolution ending the violence, for the time being at least. Before that ceasefire was agreed, our World Affairs editor gave a glimpse of what life was like in the Lebanese town of Tyre.
We were filming inside the main hospital in Tyre when 3 Israeli bombs fell a few hundred yards away. The building that was hit was one which had been raided by Israeli commandos on Saturday. They said it was a Hezbollah command center. There was near panic. A couple of ambulance crews raced off to the scene of the bombing. Theirs is a particularly dangerous job at present. 8 minutes later, just as the ambulances were getting near the building, the Israelis dropped 2 more bombs on the same place. For a time, it seemed as though one of the ambulance crews must have been killed, but eventually they made it back too. The shrapnel showed how close they'd come. So did the ambulanceman's face. These bombs, like most of the Israeli ones, were guided in by Israeli pilotless drones. You can hear them overhead in Tyre all the time, but they're so small they're difficult to spot. They can keep watch on anything that moves, theoretically.
In many ways, there's an eerie accuracy about the Israeli bombing. These are the remains of a motorbike on which a couple of supposedly Hezbollah fighters were traveling. They were spotted from the air by an Israeli drone. There's one overhead now as we're speaking, probably watching us recording this. And a missile hit them and they were killed instantly. And yet, at the same time, the Israelis seem to be finding it enormously difficult to spot Hezbollah's missiles as they're fired from this whole area.
That's because Hezbollah use every kind of cover, like the banana groves planted over a lot of this particular area. A drone simply can't spot them under these leaves. They can fire their rockets at Israel and disappear within seconds. Their tactics have been extraordinarily successful. Despite its bombing of Lebanon, Israel still hasn't managed to stop Hezbollah's missiles coming. Many of them are thought to be stored in caves and bunkers in southern Lebanon. So far, Hezbollah has fired nearly 3,000 rockets into Israel, around a fifth of its estimated arsenal. Over the past few days, Hezbollah has fired nearly 200 rockets a day. Most are Katyushas with a short range of 25 kilometers. But Hezbollah also has Fajr rockets, which can reach up to 75 kilometers. And it's thought they have some Zelzal-2 missiles from Iran with a range of 200 kilometers. During the night, Israel isolated the city of Tyre completely by bombing the last bit of road which vehicles could use. They've already destroyed the main bridge over the Litani River. But the relief agency Médecins Sans Frontières organised a human chain to get medical supplies across. The Israelis still prevent people leaving or coming into Tyre, but the siege is no longer quite complete.
John Simpson in Tyre. Last Tuesday, our security correspondent Frank Gardner gained rare access to an Israeli military airbase to talk to commanders about their tactics and to the pilots who carry them out.
Back from a bombing raid over South Lebanon. Israeli Air Force F-16s have flown 1,000 missions from this base so far. Their pilots insist they do cancel missions if they're warned civilians are likely to be hit.
First of all, we postpone the attack. We notify headquarters. We try to find another solution, another angle of attack maybe, and if it's not possible, it is the policy of the Israeli army not to harm innocent civilians.
The Israeli Air Force prides itself on its precision-guided munitions, its ability to deliver its bombs onto a precise target. But one of the most distressing things about this conflict is the very high number of civilian casualties. And as the war approaches its second month, more and more doubts are being raised about the accuracy of Israeli intelligence on the ground in Lebanon.
Say two things. One is that we think
At this briefing today, the base commander told us his pilots faced a problem. He said this aerial surveillance video showed how Hezbollah was firing its rocket launchers from residential areas. Most of Hezbollah's long-range Zelzal missiles had been hidden in South Beirut, he said, which is partly why they hit it so hard.
what do? Do you let this launcher attack again next day, or do you destroy it now, even if you don't know what is in this house? My answer is very clear. If you know that this is a launcher, you have to destroy the launcher with a minimal damage that you can cause to the environment.
But Israeli military intelligence has made some bad mistakes, like this airstrike on Qana that killed 28 women and children. The crippling of an Israeli warship by a missile it didn't even know Hezbollah possessed, and the thousands of airstrikes that have failed to locate and kill the Hezbollah leader, Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah. Israel's most prominent military analyst hinted to me that Israel had spies watching Nasrallah, but their intelligence wasn't perfect.
We knew where the man is living. We knew even what elevator he took from his office to the bunkers beneath the building. This was the first building that the Israeli Air Force just bombed.
Back on the airbase, we saw pilots scrambling for yet another mission. Despite the mounting civilian casualties, there is little sign the airstrikes on Lebanon are about to stop. Frank Gardner, BBC News at Hatzor Air Base, Israel.
Finally, it's extraordinary to think just how far technology has come, with portable video units and MP3 players commonplace these days. But it was only 25 years ago that the very first personal computer went on sale, the IBM 5150. Our business editor Robert Peston took a trip down random access memory lane for the 10 to find out more.
Well, just to show how surplus to requirements we could all become, just watch as our computerized colleague introduces the show.
This is the BBC.
This was the whirring and clunking high-tech future as seen from the 1980s, when the wow factor was generated by bleeping and flashing games.
The boss could bring home a tool for modern times, the IBM personal computer.
The company which did more than most to make that future a reality was IBM. Tomorrow is the 25th birthday of its 5150 machine. Now a modern antique in this computer scientist's collection, it wasn't the very first personal computer, but the one recognised as the first proper precursor of the billion PCs in homes and offices today.
The 5150 provided the standard for all the personal computers from that time on. So not only the hardware, the way the machine was put together, but the software, the Microsoft software provided a standard for that as well.
What bang was provided by the 1981 buck? This revolutionary IBM cost £6,000 in today's money for a machine much less powerful than even a basic mobile phone. And pretty much all it could do was help write letters and prepare basic accounts. The software developed by Bill Gates and Microsoft for that original machine does so much more today. These days, for the same £6,000, you can get a system that would allow you to watch home cinema in your living room or even the bath. You can watch your kids on closed-circuit TV while they're playing in the garden. It'll even control your lights. What's more, it's also a recognisable computer. The 1980s personal computer transformed how we play and how we work.
Once they see what an IBM PC can do,
beyond what anyone imagined.
Invest in the wonder computer of the 1980s.
Which is why it's a dangerous game to predict what computers will be doing for us in another 25 years. Robert Peston, BBC News.
That's it for now. There'll be another edition of the Best of the 10 next week. Goodbye.